The North Node is in 17 Taurus, only for a few days. And that means the South Node is in 17th degree of Scorpio. So let's have a look at those. The Taurus image is of a battle between the swords and the torches, dealing with inner confrontations. And when we look at Scorpio 17, we have the woman who fathers her own child. So this is the Scorpio image of the woman fathering her own child. An image here of a very independent woman who needs nothing from a man. And the part of us which gets on and does what it wants, what we want to do, we just get on with it, we do it. We don't need someone to help us or give us permission. That aspect of our being makes a great deal of power, of independence, freedom to act, confidence, responsibility. If it's not us that does something, it won't get done. And when you actually, for example, if you live alone and you know that nobody else is going to clean the house or wash the dishes or whatever, then you just do it. And there's no sense in which there's procrastination or inner negotiation. You know it's your responsibility. And if you live your life like that, there's a whole clarity of beingness that comes with that. So the South Node going through this degree of Scorpio is going to ask us the question, are we free of neediness for someone to take care of us? Are we self-determined? Do we seek permission for being who we are? Or do we have the clarity, incisive power just to be who we are and do things the way we do them? And let the world respond in its own way, in its own time, but this is what I'm doing right now. And I know what to do, and I have the power to do it, and I have the permission to do it because I give it to myself. This is the South Node. And this is the foundation, therefore, for the North Node, where we're focusing on our spiritual direction, our evolution of consciousness. And the 17th degree of Taurus, the battle between the swords and the torches, dealing with inner confrontations. In seeking further and further clarification of a newly discovered truth, we are required to develop warrior qualities and fight the real forces of ignorance, domination, and greed. Indecision is a fatal flaw for a warrior who must reduce matters to good and evil, black and white, and choose definitively between this or that, necessity and desire. So we can see how the two sides of this North Node, South Node axis relate to each other. If you have on the South Node side this Scorpio 17 permission and power and realization of responsibility deeply established, and the South Node brings that with us, we have for a few days the gift of clarity, of self-permission, self-empowerment for a few days. And with that, we can springboard into the North Node, also, of course, for a few days, where we confront inner duality. Now, here's a big question. The North Node, spiritual evolution, inner confrontations being resolved. It's a very, very big thing, isn't it? How do we come to have inner confrontations, inner polarities of being? Let's look at that. It's inevitable because we live in a dualistic world. Everything in this world is polarized. That's how we know what something is, because it's not the opposite. A man has no meaning unless a woman can exist. Black and white, day and night, they only matter. They only make sense. They only have form by definition to their opposite. And so the whole thing of working out what duality is, and in any moment, where are the two sides, the opposing points of view for any particular energetic instant. And we come into the world looking for answers to that particular question. And what do we find? We find parents, typically, and they're different from one another. We notice that. We notice that in everything imaginable. One of them gives birth to us, the other didn't. That's quite big, isn't it? One feeds us and the other one doesn't. That's huge. And so on. So you've got this polarity unfolding in the deepest aspects of our psyche. How we developed a mind was by, in the beginning, noticing the polarity between parents. And we didn't at that time, and probably didn't subsequently ever either, we didn't see what the commonality was. We looked for differences because we're trained to identify something, to establish intelligence with this dualistic attitude. This is not that. Black is not white. And we have to discriminate in order to form intelligence, to collect information. So the baby notices the difference between daddy and mummy. And we tend to polarize that in a certain way. This particular degree is talking about swords and torches. Not a really clear image, but if we think about the metaphor, we hold a torch for something. You get a sense of an emotional relationship with something. You feel you want that. Whereas a sword cuts through the nonsense, clears up that which is and that which is not, very discriminating. And so the mind is like a sword, and in the tarot deck it represents that principle, whereas the wands in the tarot deck represent emotional commitment. So we can perhaps assume that the metaphor is from the tarot, or at least works with the tarot. So within ourselves we've got a polarity probably given to us by our parents. Now we can say that the male principle, the masculine attitude is more mental, and the feminine mother principle is more emotional. We can say that, and that might be true. Might be true in many cases, the majority of cases, but that's not really relevant. What's relevant for you as an individual is to work out how you came to have the patterns within you that discriminate between when you think something through and when you feel it. What do you do when there's a confrontation, a conflict between mind and heart? Do you reconcile that? Do you even recognize that? Because if you don't, then your inner conflict is a fundament of your life. You are conflicted. And if you don't work out which of those two opposing forces you allow to be stronger at any particular moment in response to any particular situation, a scenario, then you're confused. You're caught with indecision. And what we spoke of earlier was that half-hearted, indecisive warriors are in trouble. So we are discussing conflict, and we are discussing warrior qualities, and we are saying, look, it doesn't matter which way you go, but make up your mind. And there are some things in life like that. You come to a crossroads, left, right, where do you go? You must move into one or the other. And actually, if you don't move, you're in trouble. Movement is okay, left or right doesn't matter. It is lack of movement that puts you then on this treadmill, this circle. And taking the metaphor aside, most people really, majority, are living on this circular treadmill. They get up, they do a job they don't like, they come home to a family they're not really blessed with, and so on. They put up with life because they can't find a way to break the movement in this treadmill sense. And that's because of this failure to reconcile and resolve inner conflicts. you're bound to be conflicted. There is no question about that. That's the gift that you were given by your parents. She wants this, he wants that. They're both pretty sure that they're right. And even if they don't teach that and tell the child that, the child observes it. Daddy goes out quite a lot and comes back many, many hours later. Mummy stays here and feeds me all day and says kind words in a soft tone, or whatever you made up as the picture of reality when you were a baby. That's still going on in your psyche. And that needs to be resolved to the extent that it's stopping you getting on with your life and being warrior-like, which means confronting that which is not acceptable to you. You have to have the power to refuse what you don't want, and you have to have the power to create what you do want, or you're powerless to some extent. Simple logic. And what defeats someone's power is indecisiveness. You can't be indecisive and be a warrior. You must make your mind up. If it's wrong, correct it later, fine. But don't stand still. Movement all the time. Such is life. Life is movement. And if you're not making significant decisions to move into a different place, different way of being, then you're not in life. You're trying to escape it, which you can't do. And so you die, if that's what you're trying to do. You die off. You become an automaton with no creativity.